The other day I was talking with a friend and we were just talking some shit about the phones that we use, and I said that I have the Galaxy Z Fold 3 5G, and the friend is from the UK where 5G is available, and he asked me like, do you use the 5G that your phone has? And I was like, no, in Bosnia we don't have 5G actually. In my country 5G is not available. There is no 5G antennas anywhere. 4G we got like a few years ago, so not even close. And he was like, would you like use it? Like, what does it do? And I just said like, bro, like 5G doesn't do anything. Like, I turned it off to save battery because the country doesn't have it. If it had it, I would be happy to have faster internet connection when I'm outside. And he was like, bro, 5G will destroy your testosterone and shit. Okay, so I want to break this down in a sense that it makes sense. So 5G, there is two versions of 5G for the most part. So every kind of mobile network, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, all of these have different bands. And the bands, it's literally different frequencies for different distances and speeds. And there is, for example, for 4G, there is two main bands that are used here. One is for getting like kilometers and kilometers of range around the antenna, and the other one has shorter range but it's much faster. I forgot how many gigahertz is each one, megahertz, whatever, I forgot it. But anyway, all of these like 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, all of them have different bands that will, and where it makes sense, for example, it's a mountain and nobody really needs the fastest, most like fastest connection there. They will put a band that makes sense to cover the most of the territory there, that will go kilometers and kilometers, but the speed won't be amazing. But in a small crowded city, it makes more sense to put more antennas that have shorter range but are much faster. It makes more sense, right? But for 5G, there are two main versions of 5G. One is sub-6 5G, and one is millimeter wave 5G. And millimeter wave is available only in the US for the most part, because if you buy an iPhone in Europe or you buy a Samsung phone in Europe, you won't actually get the millimeter wave antenna built into the phone. So even if you had millimeter wave in Europe, you can't use it with all phones that you get in Europe. But in the US, they put millimeter wave antennas into Samsung phones and iPhones sold there. And what is millimeter wave? Millimeter wave 5G is basically a really, really strong version of 5G. The frequency is insane. It's like 27 gigahertz or some shit. If I'm wrong with some numbers, you can let me know down in the comments, because I don't really care that much. But here's the point. So Wi-Fi that you use at your home, like your router, it has usually two frequencies. One is 2.4 gigahertz. It's usually the longer range one that is slower and less stable, and it can usually cover whole home. The other frequency is 5 gigahertz, and this one it has smaller range but is much faster and more stable. And most of the routers that nowadays you can buy for Wi-Fi have both, and they can switch between them. So if you go to the other room that is far away from the switch, from the router and everything, you will get the 2.4 gigahertz that can have the good range but is slower. But if you are near the router, you will have a better 5 gigahertz connection. And here's the thing: 5G, the sub-6 one that is available in like the Europe, it has better range, and it's pretty low frequency. It's like 3.6 gigahertz or some shit. So it's pretty much lower frequency compared to, it's pretty much weaker than the router that you have that is probably 5 gigahertz right now. But the 5G that is millimeter wave is like 27 gigahertz. And then you would think like, holy shit, that's like 10 times stronger than my router or 5 times stronger than my router. And I would say yes, but here's the thing, that millimeter wave 5G can't even go through a wall normally. So literally, if you put the antenna outside of your building and you went through, like you are just 2 or 3 walls away from it, you wouldn't get any kind of signal, maybe like 1 bar of signal. Because it has really, really bad range and can't go through objects like walls and shit. So if you literally went away around the building, you would lose the signal. And that is why these kinds of millimeter wave antennas are usually just used in like the most crowded areas of a city where there is nothing blocking it. Maybe like on a stadium or on a parking lot or some shit in the US, where it makes sense to put it to just cover a few hundred meters of range. But it isn't in Europe because it doesn't make sense, because it's so expensive to make all of this shit. and it can't go through a building, so it doesn't make really sense. And the usual 5G in Europe right now, the sub 6 version, it's not really strong. So it can't do anything. If you think that like 5G, 3.6 gigahertz, everything, this slower one that has better range, if you think that it's bad for you, it's lowering your testosterone, just remember that if you are living in a building right now, you probably have 10 or 15 neighbors around you using 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. So it's literally like the Wi-Fi that is around you from like 10 different routers. It's much worse and stronger than like the 5G antenna that's like 3.6 gigahertz and 1 kilometer away from you. So you need to keep that in mind. That if you want to escape all of this shit because you think it's maybe like gonna give you cancer or some shit, go to live in a cave. Because right now you can't escape this. You can't force all of your neighbors to shut down their Wi-Fi when you are sleeping. Like, nobody is gonna do that. So either move away to like the mountains and have like your house and turn off the router when you go to sleep and shit like that. Some people on the internet that got rich, like, for example, I think Hamza does this. But if you are living like in a building with other people, you shouldn't really care, because it will just take away from your brain points. It will give you stress and anxiety. You will be thinking about, oh my god, I'm gonna get infertile because two neighbors are using Xiaomi 5 gigahertz routers for their Wi-Fi. Like, nobody gives a fuck. That's nothing big to think about. And the millimeter wave would maybe be strong if it was everywhere, but it's not, because it doesn't make sense to put so many antennas everywhere. It's too expensive. So for at least for a while, you shouldn't be worrying about this shit. The best what you can do is just not have your phone always in your pocket, some shit like that. Not have a smartwatch with 4G on your wrist when you sleep. I have a smartwatch that doesn't have mobile bands, it doesn't have mobile networks, and the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are turned off when I sleep. It's right now on airplane mode. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it has like this icon of an airplane, so it's on airplane mode always. So you just should do things like that and not really worry if there is like 5G or some shit in your city, because for the most part it's still nothing to worry about. It won't give you cancer. So, because it's just logically like your router is stronger than the 5G antenna that is like a kilometer away. So it makes more sense to be worried about all of your neighbors using Wi-Fi overnight compared to the 5G antenna. It's just like that. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. See you tomorrow.